Welcome back to Footlong With American Cheese. I'm Andrew.
I'm Misbah.
I'm Anik.
I'm Owen.
And today, on the other side of the room, for our Period 7 A-Push podcast episode, we have our special guest, Hayden Esparcia. Hello, Hayden. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, last
Thank
episode.
you for that intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Last episode, we talked about the Gilded Age and the Workers' Union. This episode, we're gonna begin with the Spanish-American War. Does anybody want to go into that, or else I will?
No.
No, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and do it. It was first of all, this was sparked by the USS Maine, which was a ship we had in the middle of Spain, and basically Spain.
They sunk it.
Yeah, they did not take this lightly for some reason, and they sunk it. Now,
Wait.
There's a rumor that the Spain they sunk it.
Doesn't this all begin with manifest destiny about how we filled
we
up?
want to expand overseas. Yes,
we
already
filled up
know.
we filled up our land, and now we want to
They did
expand
it.
overseas.
No.
But no, we just had our ship there. Anyways.
Yeah, and it sunk somehow.
Yeah.
And then people weren't big fans of the Spanish at the time because we were really good allies with Cuba, and Cuba wanted independence from Spain. So we kind of allied up with Cuba, and we were like, nah, Spain, those guys. And something called yellow journalism really sparked this Spain hatred. Yellow journalism was like basically just propaganda, essentially.
Modern day media.
No, it wasn't modern day. It was like the 1890s.
Media uses today.
Yeah, oh yeah, the media uses this today. But it was a lot of fear-mongering and a lot of just propaganda to get the U.S. populace really against the French and in favor of a war. And then when the USS Maine sunk, allegedly by the Spanish, we find out later that it wasn't actually the Spanish, it was just the boiler room blew up. But this just alleged rumor, even, of the Spanish blowing up the ship sent the U.S. into the conflict that is now known as the Spanish-American War.
Something I'd like to add is that McKinley was the president at that time, if I'm correct. He got sent it was called the DeLome letter. And it was basically some Spanish official just trash-talking him and just just criticizing him and his presidency, which kind of
He took it personal.
Yeah, he took it very, very personal.
That was a conflict for him.
And basically, America won this war because we on
4
top.
months.
We on top, baby. And America already had holdings and businesses in Cuba, and that further represented in Cuba's constitution, in which America had a say, and they put America as a big importance part in Cuba, and had a law that basically said, I forgot what the law was called, put in Cuba's constitution, that said anytime America wants to intervene, they can, and Cuba can't dispute on what America does.
But yeah, this led to the U.S. adopting. This led to Cuba's independence, and then the U.S. acquisition of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. This led to America inter-conflict between each other. Not like a Civil War conflict, but people argued on what we should do with these territories. Others argued that the fundamental holding of the United States is in isolationism. Isolationism? Want to explain that, Anik?
Or Hayden, our guest.
Yeah, we should give our guest this opportunity.
We would like to, sorry. We have our special guest today, Hayden Esparcia. Please go.
Talking about isolationism.
Yeah, what is it?
I mean, the idea of it is that we're kind of just not really, we don't really have a foreign policy. Our foreign policy is nothing, we're doing nothing.
Yeah.
We just want to stay out of conflict overseas.
And I think it needs to be isolated too.
We did not really do this, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We tried, but
Yeah,
we failed.
we're just all over the place. We can't stop.
And we'll learn later down the road that it was kind of inevitable that we would have
Yeah.
to join a war overseas, or else the entire world would probably be over as we know it.
A common phrase that I think applies to this. I can't.
No, but the United States wasn't fully un-isolationist yet.
Get it together, son.
Yeah, the U.S. is still holding on to this idea of isolationism, and which is why when they got these territories, they're deciding, should we intervene or should we just stay out of it? And ultimately, the U.S. decided to intervene, entering the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam.
Owen, where are you going?
What is this?
Not all who wander are lost.
That's a fire quote. I like that.
It is, right?
Real.
Yeah. I mean, I think a saying that I have that applies to this era pretty well.
Yeah,
is,
because
life is better when you're laughing.
How can you explain that to me? Why is life better when you're laughing
You know-
in this context?
Just
Get together, son.
just wake up and live. And I mean, not all who wander are lost. And focus on the step in front of you, just not the whole staircase. And that's really just my kind of take on this whole period.
Your 2 cents.
Thank you, Hayden.
That's my 2 cents on this period 7.
Thanks, Hayden. We really appreciate that. We're really glad you're our guest today.
Do it for you, not them.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah, speaking of doing it for you and not them, let's talk about World War One.
World War I initially started off with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand, all right. Serbia assassinated Archduke Ferdinand, and he was a part of Austria-Hungary, right?
Yes, he was. And this started a chain reaction of the countries because, like, for example,
Like, there's a large web of interlocking alliances which basically stated, hey, if you're in war, we'll come in and support you. And each country had this. And then this caused other countries...
yeah, like
what-
Russia, they were protecting their ally, Austria-Hungary. Because
No, that was Germany. Germany coming in to save, and that's what got everyone
no,
mad at
Germany came in against Serbia because Serbia.
That's AP
shot
Euro,
Austria.
though. That's AP Euro.
Well,
we don't need to know the
yeah.
exact...
What really started World War I was mass militarism,
Oh,
nationalism, imperialism, and then what was the other one, Andrew?
Alliances.
There you go.
Alliances.
And these alliances plunged the entire continent into war. Not even continent.
The world.
The world
This
is
World War.
And the U.S. initially was like, hey, we're not going to get involved.
I'm gonna stay out of this.
But
They didn't really not get involved though.
they got involved towards the end, though.
They got involved they were just like sending weapons.
Yeah.
They were like, hey.
They did not get on paper involved, but they sent weapons.
they were kind of like hype men metaphorically.
Yeah,
they took a
that's
side.
really-
They took a side pretty early. They're just like,
Like-
yeah, we're just gonna send weapons to Britain. They'll pay us.
It's kind of to the point where it's like the Ziegler telegram was not a stray. Like
You
that
mean
was,
Zimmerman?
Wasn't Zimmerman with World War II?
was Zimmerman World War II?
Zimmerman was World War II.
World
No.
War
Was that the thing they sent to
II.
Mexico?
No, World War
that
II
the
was
US
Pearl
intercepted?
Harbor.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, Zimmerman was World War One.
Which it wasn't even a stray because of how much America was doing. Like
Yeah.
America really put these allies on their back, like on America.
And
Yeah,
this,
like
this
thanks
goes
to-
back to that conflict you're talking about in.
Oh yeah, it was World War One.
Yeah, no, that goes back to the conflict you're talking about with isolationism mixed with colonization. Was the U.S. truly isolationist anymore? And
No.
many people wanted the U.S. to be isolationist, but due to these policies, they weren't able to be because they said, "How can we be isolationist if we're doing all of this?" And then the final thing that got the U.S. to fully join the World War was the sinking of Lusitania. Yeah, you want to explain
I
that?
thought it was the Zimmerman telegram.
Oh no, Zimmerman
I
telegram
mean, yeah, but all right. So
was the final straw.
Oh,
But
just to
what-
clarify what that was.
thanks
is-
to Mexico intercepting the message. No,
No,
I mean
no,
Britain.
that's
Britain,
great.
Britain
There we go.
intercepting the message. Germany was sending a message to Mexico saying that how they want to kind of like attack the U.S. like a surprise attack, and if they do, they can promise Mexico their former land that the land they used to have that was taken.
during the Mexican-American
Yeah.
War. Yes.
Spoiler alert: they're
So-
not getting that back anytime soon.
And the U.S. found out thanks to Britain and Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, following this war though, the U.S. wasn't involved for too much, and this war really benefited the U.S. Economy-wise because this boosted the military-industrial complex, and due to the fighting not actually being in the U.S., they didn't have to recover from any damages like the rest of the Europe, and this sent the U.S. into the Roaring '20s.
The Roaring '20s was a time of prosperity and wealth.
The market
and
was booming.
The market was booming, and there was a thing called credit. Please excuse the boom.
Apologize,
That
I
was,
farted.
Yeah, that was Anik farting. There was a huge market boom, and a thing called credit was invented, in which people had loaned money.
Yes.
This part reminds me of a quote. Your hardest times often lead to the greatest moments of your life. Keep going.
No, I think that quote
Tough
actually.
situations build strong people in the end.
I think
Which
quote-
which does prescribe to this situation, because after the Roaring '20s, because of the build of the stuff.
Before we go get away from the Roaring '20s, let's just take a moment and appreciate the book we read in AP Lang, The Great Gatsby took
Oh,
place
yeah.
in the Roaring '20s.
Moment over. We appreciate it. All right. Get
Rest
the
in peace.
All right.
Rest in peace,
But-
Jay Gantz.
Credit built up.
James Gatz.
Credit built up, and people were buying on margin, and there were a lot of loans, and so basically everyone thought they had money, but no one actually had money, and then eventually came the stock market crash, and multiple banks failed, and that set America into the Great Depression.
Yes.
And then came along the president, FDR.
Wait,
No,
no, let's go on.
let's
Let's go on.
explain.
I'm gonna explain the Great Depression a bit more.
Detail.
Don't stop until
So
you're
over the
proud.
course of a few months, or actually I think it was a few days, or even a few weeks perhaps, some time passed and all
grass
the
is always
markets
greener on the other
crashed.
side.
It crashed. All right. What happened?
The grass is always greener on the other side.
Well, not to them because there was no grass in the urban area. All right. And so the market crashed, and everyone was losing their job, and like all these companies were going out of business, and jobs were paying so little, and everything was just a lot tough.
Everything is hard before it's easy.
Yeah, yeah.
And on top of that, the Dust Bowl was happening in the western United States, causing crops and all that stuff to go like out of season and just like lower yields. And so, in general, just the world, well, I mean, the USA, no, actually, the entire world at this time was affected by the Great Depression.
Yeah, in Germany especially. And then,
Yeah, Germany, for context, they were forced due to the
oh yeah,
Treaty of Versailles.
by the way, some contextualization we'll get into later. Germany,
They lose World War One.
They lose World War One, and following World War One, the Treaty of Versailles stated that the Germany had to pay for all of the damages in Europe.
And this is important because later a certain someone named Adolf comes into power and uses this as his backing.
Isn't he that one artist
And-
guy? Isn't he that one artist?
Ex-artist.
Oh, hold on,
Oh,
Ex-artist.
he was.
A president called Woodrow Wilson saw this possibly coming up, which is why he made the 14 points. And these 14 points stated how the world should deal with wars after they are done. Which
No risk, no story.
yeah, it didn't really get passed. Right?
No, it got passed.
It got
the 14 point. What happened is
it
the
got
League
passed, but it wasn't followed. The League of Nations.
The League of Nations was a coalition of multiple countries which worked together in order to prevent another war, based on Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Two big conflicts in this, though. A, they didn't follow those 14 points, and B, Senate voted against the U.S. joining the League of Nations. So even though the U.S. did sort of invent the League of Nations, they didn't join because the Senate saw this as being too much involved in this.
We didn't like it.
Yeah.
We were still
like a
isolationists
failure,
at the time.
too.
Isolationists.
The U.S. still claimed to be isolationist.
Which changes a lot after World War and during World War II.
Yeah, but back to the Great Depression. Anik, you were explaining that?
Yeah, the Great Depression. So basically everything in the world crashes, including the markets, especially in the United States. And this called for, the New Deal, starting by FDR, who's replacing what president?
Hoover.
Hoover.
Hoover
As
was
an
a bum.
attempt to get the government involved in reconstructing America and getting the economy back on track. Who wants to explain the New Deal?
The New Deal was a series.
Mr. Khan wants to explain the New Deal.
Actually, no, I think Andrew Salako wants to explain the New Deal.
All right. The New Deal was basically a series of programs and reforms that were offered by the government, so they can provide the relief to the American people, and just to put like more money back into the economy, which was
Stimulated.
Yeah, stimulating the economy. Wasn't that Keynesian economics?
Keynesian
Keynesian
economics.
economics, yeah.
And
And
also preserved nature and other welfare programs.
Yeah,
That was
because
the civilian-
FDR was really just like LeBron in Cleveland.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Well, paraplegic LeBron.
Yeah.
Cleveland. He's still in Cleveland.
Yeah, he's still in Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah.
Cleveland!
Cleveland.
That's where Logan Paul and Jake Paul are from.
Yeah, I think we've already said this on this podcast. This is their second mention.
I think that was the last episode.
I hope it's the last time we mentioned
All right.
Cleveland.
And eventually, what took us out of the Great Depression is the start of Hayden,
The start of Hayden?
World War II.
World War II.
No, that started 9 months
Yeah,
before
he
was
said
born.
it has to get hard before it gets easy.
It
The
does
Great
have
Depression.
to, your best times come after your worst times.
Yeah,
and it has
yeah.
to be hard before it gets easy. And that's really where World War II comes into play.
Well, it wasn't exactly
And
easy
no matter-
for a very large portion of the world, but
And no
But
matter how
it got,
good
it
of
got
a,
America out of the Depression.
yeah.
what starts World War II is Pearl Harbor, which is
Yikes.
basically
That
when
does not
That
start
does
World
not
War
start World War
Or no,
II.
World War
That
II
does
for the
not.
U.S.
U.S.
sorry.
involvement in World
It
War
starts
II.
U.S. involvement in
World War II
And
begins
this is a push, and we only deal
Yeah, with America.
with our country.
Europe-
As far as I'm
Europe-
concerned, Europe is
Let Hayden speak.
And no matter how good of a person you are,
begins with Germany invading Poland.
No, Germany taking back what's rightfully theirs.
No,
Yeah.
according to Germany. According to Germany.
According to Germany.
According to Germany, the Sudetenland.
Well, anyways,
That was Austria.
Germany invades Poland, and not a lot of people like this, but they continue and they start just going they go ham.
No, because Neville Chamberlain was like very
Eastern
he was
Europe
very
gets
soy,
messed
very
up.
They were giving Hitler a slap on the wrist, like, "Oh, you bad boy, why don't you stop?"
But like,
this. Yeah,
I mean, they kind of just let him. They let him roll.
They let him do his
They
thing.
they let him cook.
They tried appeasing him too. They tried giving him Sudetenland, I think.
Yeah, Sudetenland.
Yeah, Sudetenland.
The top part
And-
of Austria that was ethnically German.
Yeah, and they were like, all right, here you go. Don't colonize anything else. But he still did.
I feel like we're getting too much into detail about
Yeah.
the European involvement.
Yeah,
should
we
just
need to talk
focus on
about
the
America. You know
Yeah.
what I know? America.
But then, he invaded France.
Woo!
I mean, that's a top 10 play.
Yeah,
And he really just did that with ease. They surrendered like day 3.
Yeah, and this plunged Europe into World War II. They're like, all right, we've had enough of this guy. We're finally gonna put our foot down.
And
That was me putting my foot down.
And Britain was like the only last superpower remaining, other than Russia. But on the Eastern Front, Britain was the only.
Russia was also
Power.
with,
United-
Russia was
USSR.
with Germany at this point in the war.
USSR.
They
Yeah,
were
and
part
at
of
this
it.
point, since Britain was this last defense, the U.S. and especially FDR had this thing saying like, "Hey, Britain is our protector of democracy in that front. If we want to protect democracy worldwide, we need to support Britain. We need to send them money. We need to send them artillery." And this caused Japan, which was one of the Germany's allies, to preemptively say, "Hey, how about we bomb the U.S.?"
Yikes.
Prior to this, the reason why we felt like we had to is because Britain was on the verge of getting absolutely steamrolled.
Yeah, they were getting.
They were fighting
air-
for their life.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
getting aerated.
The group
Every day.
chat, the
They
group
were-
chat was turning on Britain.
They were getting aerated every day.
They were
Like,
very close to speaking
London was
German.
like on fire.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, and this really caused the U.S. to really say, "Hey, we need to help them," which then in turn caused Japan to preemptively attack America's naval military base in Pearl Harbor, which is an event called Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, America doesn't have camels.
No, I thought that was Rick
Wait,
Ross.
where-
This was the straw that broke the bald eagle's back. And this caused America to join World War II on the side of the Allies.
They didn't like it.
Yeah, they didn't like it.
Didn't like it. That was too far.
Yeah.
I didn't see how Japan thought that would work, actually.
Yeah. No, I think it would work because it really cripples the U.S. Because I think
It did, but then
we came back
America
tenfold.
did American stuff.
I mean, Hawaii.
Yeah, no,
like-
if
I mean, honestly, they could have used
At
that
the end
on
of the
an
day,
island. They
Hawaii
coulda-
is not the terminal to America's
No,
success.
But after this attack,
no, you know how you said FDR was wrong, right?
America is like
A
in
box
this
of
scenario. In this scenario, World War II. This was prior to America being like end all be all. This was the I want Iguodala
yeah.
of world history.
Yeah.
The U.S. getting bombed, and then I want Iguodala. That's pretty
Yeah.
much what this was.
And
Well,
so
honestly,
and so
they could've-
America.
Am I right? Am I right? In
America changed their
I nodded my
industries into military industries. They started a draft. They got women in the workplace. They got black people in the workplace, which went into other civil rights problems earlier in the future. But basically, they changed their entire state situation into funding the war and beating the war because
Yeah.
they were behind all the other European countries, so they had to get a jump start on everything else.
Yeah.
So they
This
so
really
they started
yanks
innovating.
America out of the Great Depression. This really yanks America out of that conflict.
This worked perfectly for FDR because he can now
Yeah,
help.
perfect. Why don't you say your
He
quote
can
again,
knock out
David, so
two
that the
birds with
audience
one
can really-
stone
Why
because
don't-
now
why-
he can fund the government. He can give government jobs out to people funded by the government, and he can help the war effort.
Yeah.
Say your quote again so that we
Say
can
it louder
really
for the people. No, say it for the people in the back.
Everything is hard before it gets easy.
And no matter how good of a person you are, you're
Okay, thank you for that. All right. And then also, there's a lot of involvement in the West Coast. A lot of factories are opening up, building planes, so to aid because it's close in proximity to Japan.
Yeah, and the United States eventually, this eventually ends the war in the Western Front in Germany.
Wait, guys, we need to talk about a big major thing. D-Day, all right?
all right. That's at the end.
All right, bro. We're
No,
gonna
no,
get
no.
there.
That D-Day was the largest invasion ever.
And the conflict was between
conducted by
the
the Allies
Americans and-
in
yeah.
France and the French beach of Normandy. This cost a lot of U.S. lives among lives of Britain and
This was
Russian
my
soldiers.
least. This was my least favorite mission in Call of Duty World War II.
Yeah.
World War II. I didn't get that game.
This is the worst.
I heard it was mid, and plus I was just more into playing Ghost at the
This
time.
is like the most boring mission because it's just you're storming the beach.
I was-
But, very impactful.
In real.
I'll
I was way too.
characterize
I was way too
this-
busy playing Ark.
I'd like to characterize this war effort with a single Chinese proverb. Be not afraid of going slowly. Be afraid of only standing still.
That actually works really well.
That actually is a very good quote. And
All right, and that's what this motivation got the United States out of the Great Depression. You know, they had that
Mamba mentality.
Yeah, and then this
Mamba
D-Day,
mentality.
this D-Day invasion yanked the ended the war in the West. But we have still one more big U.S.-centric conflict in the World War II, which would be U.S.'s war in the East or in the Pacific.
Japan.
No. Middle East.
No, not Middle East. This is not the Middle East.
I'm bad geography. Sorry.
We were not celebrating Japan right there.
We're
just
not
to
celebrating Japan. We're just getting hyped about the war because that's what men do. Because like men go to war and die.
All right, so the U.S.
I do not promote toxic
The U.S.'s
masculinity.
main strategy during this, island hopping. They would hop from island to island because it was a long distance from the U.S. to Japan. So they would attack islands specifically. and then-
reclaim them.
Aquatic-based map.
Yeah, aquatic based.
Co-op. It's a co-op mission, guys.
They would island hop from island to island, set up stations so that they could refuel their ships, and then make their way over to Japan. And Anik, tell me what happened to Japan once they got there.
Yeah, the big idea
No,
was
we're
that
not there yet,
no, the big
actually.
idea was that island hopping would eventually end with a full-scale mainland invasion of Japan.
You guys missed the main point, though.
wait, hold up.
You guys know
wait,
you-
No, wait, hold up.
I'm not even the nukes. Not even the nukes. You guys missed the main point, which
What's
was
the main
that
point?
the island hopping. The main point of the island hopping was to cut supplies reaching the mainland of Japan and higher islands.
Yeah, which was eventually
because
to
they got
support-
their
to support
resources
and
from
final
the smaller
goal,
islands.
Yeah,
And if we deplete them of the resources, then how war?
yeah, and then we could launch a full-scale invasion of Japan.
That didn't
but
happen.
but we decided to do something else, and we're gonna call on an
We took the
expert.
shortcut.
We're gonna call on an expert real quick. All right. Here we have George Isakov. He wrote a 35-page paper on this very topic. Why don't you explain the nukes and their reasoning?
All right.
We're talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah. Not to be confused with any other nukes.
Yeah.
Please. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki were basically what the general they were very controversial events. But what the general consensus of what they were was that following that near the end of the war with Japan being an extremely hyper nationalistic and nation with an incredibly potent, undying fighting will, the war it didn't seem like it was going to come to an end. So the United States, wanting to also test out their brand new weapon of mass destruction, used the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in order to show the Japanese just how truly outclassed and just outdone they were by the Americans, and just to show them like, hey, you really need to surrender now, or this is going to get even worse. And that's what eventually made the Japanese want to surrender.
And I apologize
Don't
if
you
that came
agree?
off
Sorry,
right.
don't you agree, George? That since you're expert, couldn't they have done it on like a small little island?
That is
on-
exactly what I mentioned in my 35-page essay.
All right.
By the
Also,
way, he wrote a
this is
35-page essay.
Yeah,
35
so
pages.
that's basically the biggest point that people have, the biggest grievance people have with the nukes, and what I believe is the best argument against them. Because first of all, they might not even have been necessary. Japan and America knew this. Japan was ready to surrender long before the nukes were used. Japan was in a situation that was extremely messed up. Like they were outclassed by America in literally every aspect. America had more soldiers. They had the protection of the Allies. They had a bigger economy, bigger everything. They were going to lose no matter what. There was no chance the Japanese
So
were
the
going to
U.S. essentially did this to showboat, right?
It was just a beatdown.
It was that.
Yeah, it worked, all right.
And what the Japanese wanted to do is that they wanted to surrender, but since they instilled such an undying fighting will inside onto their people, they wanted to find a sufficient pretext in order to blame their want for surrender. Right? They can't just be like, "Hey guys, the war's over," because like when people sacrifice so much to win the war, they're gonna like it's gonna not be pretty.
They had the Mamba mentality.
So they were just waiting for something to end the war. And something that could have ended the war was the Soviet invasion of Japan. Japan was the Soviets were planning on invading Japan, and this is Want to say something?
George, I just want to ask you, since you're an expert, I like to kind of put these things into like analogies.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I kind of came up with one just now. I was thinking, it's kind of like being up 45 in the fourth quarter, and maybe making like a 40-yard run, and then converting for 2 points. It was kind of unnecessary, don't you?
Yeah.
And then they forfeit
That's
right
what I'm
after
saying,
that.
that's what I'm saying.
They forfeit
Yeah.
right after that.
The Soviet invasion of Japan, which happened after the nukes.
And I mean,
Possibly-
another thing I just want to say, you must do the things you think you cannot do.
Yeah,
And that's what the U.S. did.
But
Yeah.
Hayden, I have a rebuttal.
Step back 3,
Hayden, but what
easy leg.
if your running back was about to break the point scoring record?
Yeah. So essentially, I think
That
you're
was
saying
kinda
that
weird.
like, the U.S.
That's
was just showboating essentially here, right? Showing off their power to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
At the cost of many lives. And this really characterizes the next period we're going to be talking about, period 8 of APUSH. The Cold War, which is going to be a lot of tensions between the U.S. and
The Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union.
We're going to see civil rights movements in the United States where equal rights are fought for by African Americans and women. You know, really liberalizing the United States.
Yeah. But that's going to be our next episode. Thank you for tuning in to Footlong with American Cheese, episode 7.
And we'll see you guys next time.